So I knew at that point something was not right, and then found out shortly thereafter that that was the case, that my mom had died.
I'm so sorry, brother.
Something that I struggle with still is public speaking, and I think it is because on Monday when I got to school, my teacher had me get up in front of class and tell everybody what happened.
Why would she do that?
I don't know, man. I was 7.
Some teachers are complete.
Well, yeah. So it was what it was. But I do still attribute that to my issue with public speaking.
Well, we're all afraid of public speaking. This is not something that people are just born with.
Yeah.
I could only imagine how you felt describing the worst moment in your life in front of the whole class. It's just the most ridiculous thing you could have done.
Just go do it. Start your day with something hard, something that sucks. Start with a cold plunge or an early morning workout, those kinds of things, and then your day gets better along the way.
Good morning, champ. Welcome to Chief here, professional problem solver, coming to you live for another episode of The Overcomers. Today we have an exciting guest. His name is Dan Margenau. He's a good friend from Mastermind that we both participate in, called Arete. Dan is an industrial engineer. He has more than 20 years of experience in lean manufacturing, operational excellence, and team management. He's a Lean Sigma Black Belt certified with passion for problem solving and improving operational efficiencies. Dan is the founder and CEO for Lix Brands, a company that provides advanced solutions for infused product manufacturers. Dan built out a full-scale production facility and created product formulations as he successfully developed equipment and processes to bring the technologies to commercial scale production. His previous experience includes he's a co-founder and executive vice president for Hath CBD, an innovative wellness product company where he developed inventive products, worked with suppliers and contract manufacturers to bring products to market. Polluting. He's a vice president of operations for Ebbu, a cannabis innovation company where he designed all new packaging for the entire product line for efficient manufacturability, then managed all operations, including onboarding contract manufacturing clients into the facility. He's a principal Margenau operational specialist and operations consulting company where he focused on increasing clients' bottom line through significant process improvements and waste elimination, emphasizing sustainability and growth. He's a director of operations for All Pen Vape, where he was responsible for operations overseeing the safety, quality, productivity, and efficiency and delivery of the process and the products. He increased manufacturing productivity by over 225%, improving order fulfillment and inventory controls while reducing labor costs per unit by 46%. Then also redesigned the current facility and expansion to a new facility, including equipment specifications and a layout. He's an operations manager for Lake Region Medical Excellent, a medical device manufacturing facility. Then created a culture of continuous improvement, leading a team of over 200 employees through all aspects of production, increasing on-time customer delivery from 79 to 96%. He was also operations manager for Amazon.com, and then ran outbound operations in a fulfillment center and designed processes and layouts while managing over 600 people. Quite a resume. Manufacturing specialist and purification manager for Amgen, where then developed expertise in clean rooms, CGMPs, and FDA regulations. He also executed visual factory lean projects, including 55 process mapping, and Kanbans for parts in all large-scale production areas, creating additional capacity for new drugs coming to market. Dan has expertise in cannabis, medical device, biotech, pharmaceuticals, plastics and distribution, supply chain. He specializes in operations, lean manufacturing, and team management. I thought I was expert in cannabis, but Dan is the real deal here. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Margenau. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. It's great to have you.
Quite a resume.
I wouldn't say I'm the expert in cannabis.
You're not an expert in cannabis? Look, I've been on the other side when I was younger. I used to try it.
Yeah. Well, because of my background in operations and manufacturing, I actually didn't do it until my 40th birthday. So
you didn't try it until the 40th?
Yes. So that was the first time I tried it. And it was actually with the technology that for the company that I own now.
You had to.
So, well, not I had to, but I was no longer in a situation. When you're in operations, you get drug tested, you do all of those things. You know, you don't want to lose your job because of you got into a workplace accident and then, failed a drug test. So that was always a aspect there that you didn't want to play with.
So what did you think when you tried it?
I think it's great. I mean, I believed in the medicine before. I have friends and family members that have used it to help them get through hard times with, pain management and things like that. So it's always been something that I've really believed in. I think it's got a lot fewer issues and side effects than alcohol and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing that, alcohol is legal everywhere and cannabis is not. But I've never heard of a story of somebody, getting high and beating their wife. You hear about that happening when they're drunk or getting in a bar fight or things like that, right? So I think it's a weird world we live in where some things are legal and seemingly much more harmful for you, and other things are illegal and much more beneficial.
I agree about that. They used to call cannabis like the gateway drug that leads you to stronger drugs. But I think alcohol is that drug.
Well, I think cannabis is a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug out of bad drugs. It's a gateway drug away from opioids and things like that. So, I know of several people that have used it. Like I said, they've either taken opioids, not necessarily gotten addicted or whatever, but I do know of people that have done that, where they've gotten addicted and they've used cannabis to get away from that addiction.
Yeah.
So I agree. It is a gateway drug, just not in the way that people try to claim it. And you could argue to some extent that it is a gateway just to the fact that it opens up. You're like, hey, so this plant is medicine. What other plants are medicine out there? What other things are out there that are more helpful than the kind of nasty pharmaceuticals and things that seem to have a giant list of side effects. And you take this one, and then this one leads you to that one, and then that one leads you to that one to cover those side effects. So.
Yeah. The reason, so it's a gateway, but in the different direction, not the way they to claim it. Yeah. Because alcohol, I think, especially in my experience, I've seen many stories that start with people getting drunk and then series of bad decisions afterwards.
100%.
So I think alcohol is the worst. I'm with you on that.
So, think about it. It's a poison. So,
yeah.
You think about what we've been using for, especially for the last three or so years. What are we doing? We're squirting a little bit of hand sanitizer on our hands. Well, that hand sanitizer most of it is isopropyl alcohol or alcohol of some sort. We're using it to kill the bacteria. What does that do when it's inside your body? It's the same mechanism.
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw an article this morning. I shared it with my wife. Let me see if I can pull it up. But there's also other plants, because you mentioned it makes you think what else is out there that people have been keeping away from us. So cordyceps mushroom, have you heard of that?
Cordyceps, yeah.
Cordyceps mushroom.
I take them every day.
It was banned in the Olympics because it increases your lung capacity And apparently that was Usain Bolt's little secret. He used it to win the Olympics, and
Yeah.
that's why they banned.
And it's a plant, a fungus that grows in the ground.
Where do you buy it from? Do you buy it on
You
capsule?
can get them all over. There's lots of different avenues to get them. You can get it on Amazon. There's different companies that do it, or they do it in conjunction with other functional mushrooms like lion's mane or chaga. Some of those. So
Wow.
I've been playing in that spectrum as well with stuff. Our technology from my company works really well at making those things more fast acting and more bioavailable in the body. So it makes it easier for your body to absorb it. And you can mix it really well with foods and beverages, cosmetics and things like that. So
Yeah, another one is blue vervain. I don't know if I pronounce it properly. Blue vervain treats insomnia, depression, and anxiety, cures the flu, asthma, pneumonia, and bronchitis. And presidents used it to never get sick.
there you go.
Little secret. Then kawawa root, known as the healer of all diseases, helps with 60 plus diseases, including Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, and many more.
You got to send me that article.
Oh.
Sounds great.
The other one is moringa capsules, 7 times more vitamin C than oranges, 15 times more potassium than bananas, lowers blood sugar levels, so help with diabetes. Sea moss contains 92 of 102 minerals your body needs to survive, so you never get sick anymore. Some oil here, tamanu oil, removes all acne scars within hours. And Batna oil, it's for alopecia and balding. So I'll send you that article.
I need a bunch of those. As you can see, my forehead is a lot bigger, probably.
So yeah, I'm with you on that one. Did you continue to smoke after you tried it, or?
Yeah. I'm a pretty, I don't know, a casual user. I wouldn't say on large scale. I'm not somebody who wakes up and goes for it or anything like that. But I use CBD every day, basically. So
CBD.
The hemp side of the plant. It's more anti-inflammatory, anti-anxiety, those kinds of things. So you can't make any actual medical claims, but it seems to aid in a lot of ailments that people have. So with our technology, I've been tricking my body into believing I'm a runner, and I'm not a little dude. I'm like 6'4" and 220, and so running can be hard in general, but it's a lot of mass that's bumping around. So I coat my body pretty well in our product, and I put it on basically like lotion, where I'm putting it on my hips and my knees and my shin splints and all of that kind of stuff.
And it helps CBD.
It's wonderful.
Wow, I'm 6'3", so I'm with you on that one.
Yeah,
I play soccer all the time. I smoked for many years, and for some reason, I stopped months ago. It makes me. I feel like I'm not as ambitious. It makes me relax.
It just depends, and so then maybe you do it when you're after you put the kids to bed or something. That's for me. That's a lot of times I do it. It helps me sleep. I'll put the kids to bed, and then I'll do that, and it'll help me. It's kind of odd. It doesn't necessarily help me shut off my mind. It actually helps me like go down all these little rabbit holes. Like, well, what about this? And if I get to this, and then I've actually come up with a few different invention ideas while I've been on it. But I think it distracts me enough that I don't think of the stuff that's really going on in my brain that I otherwise wanted to work through, or it helps me work through them sometimes.
Yeah, it helps you kind of like take the edge off, take a break.
Well, it just it helps get you a different perspective, I think, on things.
Different perspective, yeah. Can you dream?
Sometimes there are a lot more vivid dreams. They're a lot more interesting.
I wasn't able to dream for many years, and now I dream like crazy every night, like these vivid dreams.
Well, and I would also preface, kind of the Joe Rogan approach. I don't think cannabis is for everybody.
Right.
Just like, I don't think anything is for everybody. Maybe water, probably that's for everybody.
Water is good for everybody. Yeah. So let's go back to beginning. Can you, per tradition, I feel like sometimes generation passes on legacy or curse, and a lot of times it skips generation. So can you go back to the beginning and share with us what do you remember about your grandparents, and tell us a little bit about your parents? So the grandparents on both sides, your mom and dad, and
Going to the
also
Wayback Machine.
tell us, yeah, tell us about your mom and dad as well.
I don't know. Pretty normal grandparents, I guess, on both sides of my family. My grandparents on my dad's side, they had 8 kids. My dad was one of 8. Kind of lived in rural Wisconsin for a while. I don't know if you're familiar with I think it's Whistling Straits Golf Course over in Sheboygan.
Sheboygan, yeah.
Yeah, that one of the holes there used to be the farm that my dad grew up on part of that time. He also spent a lot of his youth in kind of more inner city Milwaukee, that area.
Okay.
But grandparents were great. They had a lot on their hands. Like I said, 8 kids, and then I think somewhere, I don't even know exactly, which is probably a sign that it's a lot, but somewhere around 50 grandkids.
Wow.
So, not a lot of special treatment, I would say, other than the fact that I have a tree nut allergy. And so when she would make cookies, she'd be like, these ones are for Dan. So, I got my separate little batch of cookies so that I didn't go into anaphylactic shock or something silly. But yeah, they were pretty good, blue collar, hardworking people. My grandpa was a carpenter.
From what side, your mom or dad?
What was that?
From your mom's side or your dad's side?
On my dad's side.
That's it.
Yeah, he was a carpenter and a painter as well, very meticulous. I feel like I got some of my handiness from him. I've used it in different ways, but I've certainly gotten some of that. I think tinkering in the garage kind of aspect. And yeah, they did. I think they did their life the best they could and the best they knew how. My grandpa on my dad's side died of Alzheimer's or dementia. And then my grandma, I can't think, died of a broken heart about a year later.
Wow.
So, she had broken her hip but was a very strong woman. And, I think there's a lot to the power of the mind. And, it was like, oh yeah, she'll be back up and good in no time and blah, blah. And then I think she just kind of decided like she didn't want to have a life without her, her partner. And, they were both, I think both in their 90s when they passed. So,
happens a lot. They probably spent like 70 years together, and they were like,
yeah, something like that. I remember their 60th wedding anniversary. I remember a party for that. So I would have to say it's somewhere in that 60 to 70 year time frame that they spent together. So, and then my grandparents on my mom's side, they were in Minnesota. So kind of both of them being kind of Midwestern values. They worked hard. I never saw them sitting around. It's actually kind of a sign of warning that my father gives me. He's like, don't be like that. So they saved every penny they had and were kind of saving for retirement. Was their plan. They had a lake house up in kind of northern Wisconsin or northern Minnesota, and they would go up there and they would be working on the lake house and trying to get things going and doing projects and all of that stuff. And so just kind of never relaxed and never took time. It like saved money to the point where they were eating like generic cheese and generic foods and stuff like that. And we're kind of saving everything for retirement. And said that kind of the warning to that is after they retired, within a few years, my grandpa also got Alzheimer's and then died. And so, he didn't ever get to enjoy his life and enjoy his retirement. So, there's certainly an aspect of live life for now. You want to have a balance of both, where you're living it for now and also living it for the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's a good warning. Yeah, for sure.
my grandma, on my mom's side, she lived, I think into her 90s as well. So, pretty far along. I don't know if I just lost you, your video,
Oh,
just messing with the cameras. She lived into her 90s as well. Just a little firecracker, Italian, that side of things. So, but had great times, had great memories. They were the kind of grandparents that on both sides, really. And I talk to my children about how lucky they are, because their grandparents are in their life all day, every day. Not every day, but pretty darn close. Up until about 2 months ago, we lived 5 miles from my dad. So, but these grandparents were grandparents that I saw twice a year, stuff like
yeah.
that. So I never really felt like I had like a super solid relationship with them. Just we lived, whatever, 1,000 or 1,500 miles apart for most of my life. So, good stuff. I think they had 3 kids on that side, and one of them was my mom, obviously, and that's where things get into the little more emotional side of stuff. My mom, when I was 7, well, I guess maybe when I was 6 and some change or whatever, she was having headaches and things, and ended up going. Maybe I'll take a step back. So she, I'm not the normal engineer guy, I guess. I do have that, like, touch with the spiritual side, or touch with that kind of like mystical universe. My dad actually had seen like a psychic, and the psychic, he's passed now, but his name was, I think it was George Westinghouse. Don't quote me on the name, but he,
Oh, like a psychic name.
doing a psychic reading thing for my dad. And he told my dad that my mom was sick and to get her medical care. And so she, somewhere around that time or shortly thereafter, that she started developing headaches and stuff like that, kind of migraines and things. So they found that for her, there's the kind of blood vessel stem that branches into the body or into the brain. Hers was under pressure, like it wasn't the size it needed to be. So it was kind of, under higher pressure than it should have been. And so when I was 7, she went in for surgery, and they were going to fix that. And when they shot the dye in so that they could see what they were doing in there, it, burst, and she died essentially.
Oh.
So it's, it's tough. It's a tough place. So I remember I was at school. It was a Friday. They thought the best thing for you was to, just be there, go to school like normal, that kind of thing. And I forgot my book it, kids book order form. I don't know if you're familiar with those or not, but, I think a lot of kids in elementary school would understand that. And so I went to the office in my elementary school and called home. Sorry, I told you I'm a baby. So called home and, was like, hey, forgot my order form. Can you guys bring it or whatever? And instead of saying, yeah, I'll bring it, they said, we're going to come get you. And so I knew at that point, something was not right. And then found out shortly thereafter that was the case, that my mom had died. So
I'm so sorry, brother.
yeah. So that's that. And like I said, back in that day, we didn't coddle kids the way we do now. So that was a Friday. And I missed Friday afternoon of school, but I was back at school on Monday. And something that I struggle with still is public speaking. And I think it is because on Monday, when I got to school, my teacher had me get up in front of class and tell everybody what happened.
Why would she do that?
I don't know, man. I was 7.
That's
So,
the worst thing that the teacher could do.
well, Go tell Mrs. Jansen, my first and second grade elementary school teacher at Columbine Hills Elementary.
Some teachers are complete idiots.
Well, yeah. So it was what it was. But I do still attribute that to my issue with public speaking. So, for what it's worth.
Well, we're all afraid of public speaking. This is not something that people are just born with.
Yeah. Before that, I was, my dad speaks of like there was a time. It was like before your mom died, after your mom died.
Notice the shift in your behavior.
Yeah. So that was that.
I could only imagine how you felt describing the worst moment in your life in front of the whole class. That's just the most ridiculous thing you could have done. I don't know how this could be beneficial in the first stage of grief. So
I wasn't a psychologist in 1985, so
they didn't have to.
can't speak to it.
A friend of mine had an experience where his teacher told him to come up in front of the whole class and to say that he's stupid.
Oh,
Because he made a mistake. So he was supposed to say that like few times. And
I thought you were supposed to write that on the chalkboard back
something
then.
like that. And he wrote it and then he had to say it out loud
Yeah.
to everybody. I don't even want to say it. But it's so crazy how teachers were doing these nasty things, and who knows where that came from.
I don't know if they were necessarily nasty, right? I mean, I would lean towards saying that what they do now is much more nasty.
Yeah,
there's a lot more nastiness that happens in schools these days, and a lot more indoctrination and stuff like that. So, not to get on that subject, but
he came home and his dad was like, "Why did you get a note from the teacher or something?" Because the teacher reported him or something like that, and he was like, "Because I am stupid." And then he was like, "You're what?" Well, that's what the teacher did. Made me say it in front of the class a few times. And he was a little angry. His dad talked to the teacher, talked to the principal, and then made the teacher publicly apologize in front of the whole school for saying that.
Yeah.
So you can kind of break that shame, because that's all it takes. It takes a little moment at time to break somebody and build that trauma that people work on over. It affects so many different areas in their life. It's a hard thing to overcome. So I encourage you to fight this with smaller groups. Children is a good start.
Public build them up.
Public speaking in front of children, like little kids, 2-3 years old. Then
kids scare me more than anything. So
they do.
Oh yes, I have two daughters, and I feel like like that movie Shrek, right? Like feel like the ogre around, like not them obviously, but around like their friends and stuff. Or if I'm like volunteer in a classroom, which my wife volunteers me, to go to the lunchroom or do whatever. I always feel like I'm going to hurt one of them just by like bumping my elbow onto them or something. Like
big guy.
So,
well, if children are tougher, then go to old people, 70, 80-year-old people.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
What are they going to do? They can't go on Yelp.
Yeah, it's nice. They're not writing a review on me. You're right.
And maybe have an inspirational speech for them. It's never too late type of deal. Get them to do something wild they've never done before. And I mean, that's just suggestions. I don't know if you needed one, but public speaking has been something that I've been doing for a while. And like I said, I feel everyone is afraid, and it's just a fear that you kind of step into and you face. Don't stop.
I think that's what it is. It's just doing it, right? And I think a lot with Arate, gotten to that point where I'm just, it's like, yeah, it sucks. That's why I'm doing it. And you'll never be, your first podcast will never be great, but you'll never be great if you don't start your first podcast.
Right. Not only it's not going to be great, it's probably going to suck really bad.
Yeah, and so it's just doing it. So I've done a handful of podcasts now. So I would argue that that's public speaking to some extent. Although
Oh yeah,
I don't see and think about an audience as much as I'm just looking at you on the other camera.
it's easier this way.
So there's that aspect of it. But
Mhm.
I'm in my role with Licks. I am a sales guy too. So it's easy for me to put my head down and be in our laboratory, in our facility, and work on operational things and stuff like that. But we got to get out of our comfort zone, and so that's where I need to spend and focus more of my time is building business, building clients, having that reach out. And so it sucks, but that's what has to happen. So that's what I'm doing.
And I'm sure, when you were leading 200 people team, 600 people team, you had moments where you had to speak in front of large group of people.
Yeah, there's some of that for sure.
And that's public speaking.
I avoided it a lot.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go back to growing up. You lost your mom at 7. It must have been very difficult for your dad as well.
Oh yeah, he lost the love of his life.
Lost the love of his life, this psychic kind of like he probably dealt with a little bit of guilt and stuff.
Well, I mean, they went and he got medical attention right away.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much right at that point, they went and did it. So it wasn't a delay there.
Do you have any siblings?
I have an older brother and an older sister.
And how much older?
My brother's 2 years and my sister's 7. We were all supposed to be 5 years apart, so my brother and sister are 5, but I was accident on a second honeymoon in Acapulco. So I know there's bad lighting, but I am more tan than the rest of them. So we think it just has to do with the Mexico connection.
It could be, yeah.
So
they were also in a very tender age.
Yeah, my sister, losing her mom as a teenager when you're as a girl, right? You're needing your mom for a lot of those conversations, a lot of that stuff. And my dad, he traveled with work as well. So we were very much, people say latchkey kids, but we never had a key to our house. I used the garage door opener if the door was locked, but it was never locked. It was, a great suburban neighborhood growing up and all of that. But we very much would be on our own. And, my sister, to some extent, she was in her own world, right? She was 14, 15, 16. And so it was my brother and I a lot that probably Child Protective Services would be called these days. If you leave a 7 and 9-year-old home alone or a 10-year-old home alone, that kind of a thing. But, I remember distinctly my neighbor, who's my best friend's mom. And, we actually kind of referred to her as mom, our adopted mom kind of a thing. It was just that kind of relationship. Still in touch with her now, still best friends with her son and all of that. But I remember my brother was scared of the dark. I remember her coming and tucking him in. His emotions.
Hey, brother.
But I remember her coming, from 2 houses down, and she would come and tuck him in.
This is really the toughest thing you could go through at a tender age.
Yeah, but it also, it makes you resilient, makes you independent and self-sufficient. I preach to my kids all the time now because they're, little punks that, like when I was 7, I was doing my own laundry. I would make lunches for myself, for school and stuff like that, making meals. I mowed the lawn. Usually it was like I mowed the front, my brother mowed the back, or vice versa. I started mowing the lawn before I could reach the top part of the lawnmower. I was pushing from the middle because I had better leverage. So, it makes you a more independent person, more resilient in that respect as well. So, compared to other kids who, graduated from high school and then were out on their own and were like, oh, so how many loads of laundry am I going to ruin before I figure it out? Figured that out a decade earlier.
Prepares you for life a little bit better. It's an interesting dynamic probably makes the siblings closer together as well, right? Because you have such a background with pain.
But we also are dealing with stuff in different ways, and you know, my brother and I had a very rough relationship, I would say, growing up. Um, you know, he had some what I would refer to as anger issues, things of that nature. The reason that my nose does weird things and I don't breathe out of it very well. But you know, we're all, I think, pretty close now as adults. So, you know, I think there's an aspect of that, and you know, it's there's that, you know, you're going through something similar, but we all deal with grief in our own way, and we all deal with that struggle or those challenges in our own way.
Is your dad still around?
Yeah. So he's
How is
huh?
Did he ever get remarried or?
He did. He remarried when I was maybe about 16. Well, I guess he didn't remarry then. He started dating the woman he's with now then. So he was dating before that and stuff. And my brother and I were really good at running those women out. It almost became a game for us at times. So, you know, challenge, I don't know, things. But yeah, so he started dating the woman he's with now when I was about 15 and a half or so. And then they married, you know, a number of years later.
You must have approved of her if she's still around.
No, actually, not initially.
Just
You know, we had a pretty rough, long period of time. So
she survived.
really until you know, my oldest is going to be 11 here in about a month and a half, and really until then we had a pretty challenging relationship. So you know, I don't know what it was, but she managed to make it through. So
Tell me, what's the first conscious moment you remember in your life? Like first memory that you can go back to. Like you start with, this is my first memory ever. When you realized you were alive.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. The first one, I don't know. I remember my mom used to give us back rubs before bed. So I remember laying across like a lazy boy chair on her lap. You know, I remember sitting on her lap when I was like maybe 5, when we were driving cross country to, I think, to Minnesota. That's when I started driving. I know nobody believes that, but I would sit on my mom's lap or on my dad's lap, and you know, I would be in charge of the steering wheel and the blinker, and you know, that's started that process pretty young.
Me
I don't
too.
know much. I don't know if I can pinpoint like the first one. So I don't know if some of it's related to when, you know, the trauma of my mom passing or what, but I feel like my memory, I don't have that vivid memory of, you know, individual events and things. Like somebody will tell me about it. Like my best friend Sam Hill, growing up best friend. You know, we still talk, but I don't know that I necessarily consider him a best friend at this point, just from the standpoint of like, we have totally different lives and totally different, you know, totally different states and things like that, you know. But we certainly still stay in touch. But you know, he's got like the memory of like an elephant. It's amazing. He you know, it's like, oh, you remember that, and then, you know, it'll jog my memory, but it doesn't. You know, it's not something that I just, you know, have that recall with, I guess.
Dealing with pain, you probably deleted a lot of stuff consciously.
So, I don't know, and maybe it was that, and maybe that's just the way my brain is wired from the beginning. So
Tell me about the teenage years. First girlfriend.
I didn't date a lot. You know, had a couple girlfriends here and there in high school, or girls I went out with. You know, maybe a little shy on that respect. You know, was into cars and into, you know, that type of stuff. You know, I kind of had that engineer brain from the get go. My dad claims that when I was a year and a half old, I was able to start our lawnmower. So, you know, he was mowing the lawn, and I was, you know, was out there. He shut off the lawnmower and went to go, you know, change the bag or whatever for it, to empty the bag of grass out. And when he came back, I was sitting next to it with the lawnmower started. So I still have all my fingers and all my toes, so that was good. But
You were observing.
I've always been kind of that mechanical side of things. So, you know,
Is that
before I
like,
but
Is that in the zone for you when you're fixing stuff and when you're making things
Oh yeah,
work?
that's my happy place. I would say if I had all the money in the world, I would be probably in a garage fixing old cars, kind of just flipping them for fun type of a thing. So
Yeah.
that's my happy place.
What's your favorite car ever? You have to describe Dan Margenau
There isn't one.
in a perfect world. What car are you seeing in? It's weird, but I always
I can't say there's one. I like fast cars, right? Like, have an attainable, soon to be hopefully attainable kind of car is a Mercedes E63. I really like that, performance, but also luxury and things like that. But I also like trucks, and I spent a lot of time. I had a 77 Toyota Land Cruiser, the FJ40. That was kind of like that Jeep type body style.
Mhm.
I always say I would be a much wealthier man now if I had invested some of that money that I spent on that vehicle, because I would go four-wheeling with it and break stuff and upgrade stuff and all sorts of things like that. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about cars. I learned a lot about um, the strength of materials, I would say, things getting to their breaking point and
Yeah.
beyond. Definitely that Vision would have a Land Cruiser in it. Just from a nostalgic standpoint, I had that vehicle from basically when I was 16. I was supposed to have a yellow Subaru station wagon, four-door. That was going to be my first car, but I managed to sell it and then buy the Land Cruiser like before my 16th birthday. So that I would be a much wealthier man if I had that yellow Subaru station wagon for high school instead of the Land Cruiser.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have all these memories.
I wouldn't have all the memories of getting stuck in a lake, or really next to a lake. That's a good one. And blew up my transfer case and had to get towed out by a big road grader. But yeah, I would say something in that nature. I like resto mod stuff. I'm not, I like working on the older stuff, carburetor and stuff. It's obviously a lot easier to work on. But as far as like drivability and daily life, I like having air conditioning and power windows and fuel injection and
Yeah.
So some nice old Camaros or Chevelles and things like that. But I would certainly put modern technology in them.
What happened after high school?
I went to college.
What did you go for?
I went to Colorado State. I was in the mechanical engineering department. And then I realized pretty early on that it was too much theory for me. I like touching stuff. I like moving stuff. I like, turning wrenches and figuring stuff out. And I actually have two friends. One of them, they're twins. And then one of their roommates was a guy named Jordy, and he was going to school for mechanical engineering. He was a couple years ahead of me. And then the twins, one of them was in production occupation management, and the other one was in industrial engineering, industrial technology management. And they, like I said, a couple years ahead of me in school. And so I was able to kind of look at their paths and see. And I remember coming home from a party one time and was over at their house, and Jordy actually was coming home from the library at the same time. And I was like, I don't know if that's the college experience I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, but that was a factor for me. So I ended up going, and the two paths for the twins were very similar up to a point, and then you kind of had to choose which one you wanted to go in, and I went the industrial engineering path. So
How did you meet your wife?
I actually met her in college, but then she was dating somebody that I was friends with, kind of ancillarily friends with, and then we had similar friend groups out of college, after college as well. Something of that nature. No, they had broken up at that point. So, and then just we were back in kind of the Denver metro area, and we had similar friend groups kind of overlapped. So those twins of friends of mine, the Keplers, him and Jason. So
Was it one of the twins?
Hmm?
One of the twins was dating her? Or? Oh, okay.
No, just the similar friend groups. So
Similar friend group. Got it. And how long were you dating before you got married?
we dated 4.5 years. So
It's a pretty good amount.
yeah,
You've got 2 girls.
got 2 girls, almost 11 and almost 9. So
I've got a 12-year-old girl, so I can relate to your head. But
yeah,
being a father of girls is not easy with the discipline and
supposed to be easier up until about this point now. I don't know that I would agree that it was easier up until this point, but I would say my house is probably in better shape than it would be if I had boys. Because I've been to some friends' houses that have boys, and you're like, oh, what put that hole in the wall? Oh, that was a sword. He carries a sword around all the time. So we don't have that as much, but
yeah, definitely girls are keeping things clean. I can't complain about that.
yeah, cleaner. I will say I was not prepared for the level of screaming, the octave bands that are out with girls. You know, they scream when they're happy, they scream when they're sad, they scream when they're angry. It's just a slight tweak of like, oh wait, that one's anger. Okay,
Yeah.
we should go address that, or so.
Yeah, sometimes you're shocked. What's going on here? Oh no, we're just laughing.
Celebrating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Well, if there is any moment in your life and you could go back with a time machine and alter the moment, kind of like, have you seen Back to the Future?
Yeah.
If you can go back in your life and alter a certain moment in your life, which moment would that be? Or maybe you don't want to change it, you don't want to edit it, but you want to just relive that moment one more time.
Well, I mean, that one's easy for me. I would go back and I would have my mom go to surgery before. So, you know,
You
that
would
would be,
convince her like a year before.
yeah.
Like, I know you don't trust me, but
I know I'm just a kid, but get your ass to the hospital. So that one's an easy one for me.
I hear you. What is some adversity that, what would you say are the 3 biggest moments of adversity? I'm sure losing your mom is probably the first one. What are the other 2 biggest moments of adversity that you've experienced in your life? Biggest challenges, biggest walls?
I mean, a lot of it is related to that, right? In that era, most these days, most families are 2 income families where the mom and dad both work or things like that. Back then, I think it was a lot more that the mom stayed at home, and so moms planned play dates and things like that. Luckily, it wasn't an era where like play dates were really a thing as much, but they planned stuff more for their kids, and so I missed out on a lot of that aspect of things. And so kind of felt always kind of left out of stuff. My adopted mom, Vicky, I would say, did a great job of including me and stuff, but it wasn't my family. It wasn't my mom pushing and driving those things. So I would say some of that aspect of things. Diversity wise, I would lean towards kind of some of where I've been the last probably 3 years or so. It kind of coincides with COVID, although it mostly is not related to COVID. But deciding to go, I guess longer than 3 years, but deciding to kind of go out of the real world and move from medical device or that kind of thing into the cannabis industry. That was a challenge for me. And then moving from that aspect into kind of the entrepreneurship role. So after I worked at Open Vape and worked on their operations, I decided I'd kind of had enough with bosses and things. I've always been somewhat of a contrarian thinker in that world. You always think you're smarter than everybody, and you well, that's stupid. Why I would, if I was in charge, I would do it this way or whatever, right? And so leaving there and deciding to start a operations consulting company and kind of moving into that entrepreneurial space more. And then it Licks. So I originally started the company with a business partner. I brought him into the idea of the company. And then things just, I would say from not necessarily the beginning, but kind of early on, things didn't pan out the way we had originally envisioned it panning out. He lived in New York. I lived in Colorado. He was supposed to be moving his family to Colorado, and we were going to build out this facility. And that changed to, well, I'll be out there a couple times a month. And then it changed to, well, maybe I'll come visit, blah, blah, blah. And then with COVID happening, then he didn't come out. And so, our facility, he ended up coming out, probably, I think a total of three times in the times that we were still partners. And then there was a company that was going to buy us. And, I've always been in the operations side of the business, and side of my career has really been operations and manufacturing. And, my business partner was on the hedge fund, risk assessment, risk management side of things. And I, kind of made the mistake of letting him lead the due diligence on that acquisition. And, hindsight's a bitch, I guess I would say. So they are, and they can be wonderful, but they can be a big challenge as well. And, I learned a lot of lessons there. So while while it was a bunch of adversity, it's also been, a bunch of life lessons that I've learned about that, right? So we basically sold us to a company that was essentially bankrupt. So I spent about a year. I went from this place of like, oh, we're selling our company, life is so great, we're going to make all this money, do all of this stuff, to fighting for, somewhere around a year, getting the company out. So we spent some time with the company trying to get their company, going, and then spent the remainder of that time trying to get the company out of their company because they didn't fulfill all of the promises of the contract. And then subsequently spent, about another, 8 months to a year trying to get my business partner out, because he wanted to then go with the guys that were, essentially bankrupt in a new venture they were going to do, which, has me question what happened in the first place, and has me question, were there things happening behind the scenes that I was never really part of, because, it was kind of one of those like, oh, you just keep working on the facility, you keep working on the product and the manufacturing, and, I'll deal with this other, kind of business stuff more. And so, like I said, it makes you kind of question, were there things and deals happening in the background and stuff. And so he wanted to stay with them, but then he didn't want to give up his equity in the company and all that. So I, had a little bit of fight getting that out and getting him out of the company and all of that. And then conveniently, the new company that they started, I think within a couple of days of us signing our final, separation agreement, they announced some new acquisition thing that was happening, like I said, days later. So, it certainly puts up some red flags, some question marks on that. And then it siphoned off a lot of the money out of the business, and, a lot of that aspect of things and clients and stuff. And so, at this point, I would say I am in the depths of that adversity, right now. So I've been working to overcome that, working to get things back on, off the ground and going, moving forward in that direction. So
What lessons are you extracting from this? Like, it's so hard. My problem personally, I started my company 8 years ago, and I had opportunities to find partners and to work with partners, but I never wanted partners, and
Yeah.
because I'm afraid of being backstabbed, and I have trust issues.
Yeah.
And I tried with a couple of people, and like I really watched them closely, and I'm like, no, we're not partnering up. And right now, I'm working, and I'm want God to be my partner, not another physical. But I think when people have personal relationship, there's weird dynamics.
Yeah.
There's competition. Some best partnerships start with a couple of kids that have a dream and they have the
Yeah.
same dream. So sometimes we force partnership because kind of like you force relationship. You want to be with some. You see the red flags, but they're kind of blurry because you want this to
Yeah.
work out so bad.
You're scared. It's scary doing stuff on your own.
It's scary
Right?
to do
I mean,
stuff.
it's scary. Like I personally love having somebody to bounce ideas off of,
Yeah,
and
really suck at the business side of things, like manage accounting, managing.
yeah,
I'm more of a right brain, and I'm good with the sales, with the presentations, with the content creation, but sometimes somebody needs to be like, hey, come back to reality. You're too much of a visionary. So I desperately need a partner, but
yeah,
it's so hard for me to find the right person
yeah,
to share the same passion. And the other thing is ownership. Like you own this thing, you created this thing, and it could be so stressful going through separation, and it feels like somebody's
it's like
taking
a marriage. It's like a
taking a baby.
divorce. I mean, it's very much like that, right? Most partnerships, it ends up being like a divorce if you guys separate. I mean, it's
Painful.
painful. It's there's um,
But if you have to extract some lessons,
I've
what
extracted a whole pile of lessons, right? I mean,
what
like
would make the perfect partnership? Let's say in the future, what are some conditions that you have to go over? And I think healthy leverage is good for partnership. Like to know that, hey, I'm not good at that. This partner is really great at that,
yeah,
and and for them to for you to have leverage over them with what you're good at. So if both of you are really suck at the things you're not good at, the other person is good at.
yeah,
I think that's good for partnership because there's like dependability,
yeah.
um, and it's hard, and also to stay relevant, to not be a has-been, to not get comfortable, but to constantly elevate your game and push the partner to elevate his or her.
Yeah, holding people accountable. I
Yeah,
think that
accountability.
it's that accountability. It's a lot of times when you're dealing with executive people, it's egos and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
Um, dealing with a lot of that aspect of it. I would say make sure if you're getting into a partnership to have your ducks in a row. Make sure you have a real strong operating agreement that you both agree on, and there is a operation and order or when, not if, when there is a dispute, how it gets dealt with, how how you can work through those things. Having that legal side of it buttoned up, I think, is super important.
commitment is a big deal too.
Yeah,
Like a covenant. Like, hey, no matter what, because I think with marriage, the commitment is what keeps if both parties really believe in the commitment and they
yeah,
prioritize the commitment, there's no way out. I think partnership has to have the same type of understanding that no matter what,
yeah. I mean,
there's
I was all in on our business and all in on our partnership, and my partner always kind of seemingly had something else going on the side and things like that. And when we breaking up, I remember a conversation in which he said something to the effect of like, because I brought that up, right? Like, hey, like I thought we were in this shit together.
right.
Um, and it was like, yeah, but I'm not, I didn't sign up to be in it and go down with the ship kind of a thing or whatever. And it's like, well, if you always had one foot out, then maybe we never, it was never going to work.
You're supposed to go down to the valleys together, and Oh man, partnerships are so difficult, to. It's like a
Yeah.
blessing, and most partnerships don't work out.
Yeah. And
There's
so
bars and
I've
no.
learned a lot of lessons of that, right? A lot of what not to do. I lean towards same thing as my job at Amazon. I learned a lot of what not to do there and how not to treat people there. A lot of the stories you've read are real, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
But you take away from that and you get those lessons and you learn them. And I think the biggest lesson and I wouldn't say have learned, but am learning, right, is I can do it on my own. I can, like, all right. So instead of telling yourself you're not good at sales, go start selling. Go do it, right? I think a lot of that I found this, I don't know, I won't call it stupid because I listened to it, but I found this silly app called Pep Talk. I think I
Pep
shared
talk?
something in the Arte Facebook group. I shared a link to it, but it's literally just called Pep Talk. I don't know exactly where I found it, but it's like all these little snippets of people, and you can kind of choose who you want to listen to and not listen to. But like there's some of Andy in there and Ed in there, and Jim Rohn and a lot of the Maxwell and Hermosi and a lot of those guys, and it's just little snippets of them. And it's a great little motivational app. It's like you're having a bad day, and it's like you just listen to that, and it helps get you pumped up and helps you get you going. The one I was listening to yesterday, I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was some aspect. I mean, I was listening to it when I was out on my ruck, and I was wearing hiking boots because it snowed here in Montana. And I have my backpack with, a heavy backpack with 25
It
pounds.
snowed already?
What?
It already snowed?
Oh, yeah, it was our first snow. We got a couple inches, nothing crazy, but it's coming. It'll be in Colorado this week. So I think this weekend it's supposed to dip there. So it's the end of October, man. It's not out of the question.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But had my backpack on and I was wearing hiking boots, not my running shoes, and I was listening to it and it just got me. I just was feeling it, and so I started running with my back on, and I'm paying for it a little bit today. A little sore, but it felt awesome and I felt great. And it's silly. I have not bought the premium subscription of it, so you still hear little commercials every 30 minutes or so. But it's a great little app that just kind of helps with that motivation and helps get you going. But the long story short, the biggest lesson I'm learning is just go do it, just get it done. There's that self-limiting factor, right? Oh, well, I'm just this little guy. Why would I reach out to, Coca-Cola? Like, they're not going to want to do business with me. It's like, let them say no. Why the hell am I preemptively saying no to stuff? So,
Right.
That's kind of the I feel like that's the lesson that I needed to learn in this situation, going through all of this crap and deal with this adversity. And, that's the lesson is go get it done. No excuses. It's you get done.
Yeah.
I can complain about my business partner. I can complain about, COVID screwing things up and blah, blah, blah. I complain about the market and all of this crap, or I can just go out and get it done. So.
Yeah, I deal with some regrets, and I don't know if you were on the last call with Andy, and he was like, I'm dealing with the most regrets than anybody else. Like,
I need to re-listen to it. I got sidetracked while I was on it.
Like feeling that I want to. I feel like I need to be way further in life.
Yeah.
But maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we all have that, right? I'm trying to instill that in my daughters. So I've actually had them listen to certain little snippets of this app that I've been, listening to. I've had them listen to that. I've had them listen. It's hard to have them listen to Andy. Let's be fair. F-bombs are plentiful, and they're not teenagers yet. Not that they've never heard of F-bomb before, but
does he sound the same on the kids' books too?
I haven't listened to any of the kids' books. I really should get some of those going. But I'm trying to instill that, like, hey man, like, it's up to you. Go get it. Like go happen. Like you'll never be good at something if you don't practice at it. And if you want to be great, it's going to take a lot. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of pushing. And nobody's on their deathbed, and says, like, everybody had their biggest problems they have is regret. Nobody ever is sitting there going, gosh, I really wish I hadn't talked to that woman, in high school. They say, I wish I had.
Right.
Right. Even just saying that, gives you goosebumps thinking about that stuff, right? Here's like you were things you didn't do, not the things you did.
Exactly.
Right.
And the other thing, one of the biggest regrets, I read that very often. The first regret is I wish I was true to myself and do what actually gives me joy versus doing what everybody else is expecting me to do. That's the number one.
Yeah.
The other one is I wish I said out loud what I actually feel. So some people like push their feelings down. I wish I spent more time with my friends. I wish I gave myself permission to be happy, because sometimes we're like, oh, I need to struggle now. I need to suffer.
Yeah.
Suffer. There's so many people like suffer, 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 suffer.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, you could still go through difficult moments, but find joy in them.
Yeah.
Celebrate the small wins. And 75 hard really helps with that. I've done it 3 times. I've done it like 5 times, but I finished it 3 times.
Yeah. So I've done it once. That's actually I found Andy and Ed subsequently kind of backwards, right? So I actually had a friend of mine, and I am pretty sure he never really listened to the podcast or what, but he found 75 hard and started doing it, and then suggested I think he wanted a partner in crime, and so he asked me if I wanted to do it. So I started doing it, and then in doing it, I found the podcasts and found Andy and Ed through that side of it. And so I know a lot of people found the podcast and then eventually went and found 75 hard, but I kind of did it backwards.
Yeah, I do it every year. From January 1st, Chicago has a really brutal winter.
Yeah.
So the first time I did it was in the and I did this negotiations. I was like, oh, it's gonna to this party. I'm gonna be drinking here. I'm gonna be partying here, and then I started doing it on this, and then I was like, the more you do it, the more you face the little bitch, and I'm like, oh, the reason why I did it in the summer is because I don't like the cold. So then I started this tradition, and like 3 years in a row, I do it from January 1st until March. And usually I go into live hard, and I do it like a 6-month thing. And now my lifestyle, besides the second workout, is pretty much 75 hard. I work out once a day. I read every day.
Yeah.
I don't eat clean, so this is what I'm missing.
My issue is
Sugar.
I'm a bit when it comes to sugar. I love my sweets. So
Yeah.
Otherwise, I do pretty well. I eat pretty well. I've been doing either a cold plunge or a cold shower since maybe April in there. And I love that. We don't have
It actually helps with the cold weather.
It helps with the cold. Helps. I mean, I love it. You said you can do things that are hard, but enjoy it. I do find enjoying like the ice cold shower or the cold plunge. I enjoy overcoming that stuff so much. It helps a lot with matter where you are, where your day is. When I've had a crappy day or something that throws you off, and you're like, I need to reset. That's one of the things I do to go reset. Is I'll go and even if I already did a cold plunge or a cold shower, I'll go do another one. Just from that standpoint of it is so good and so good for you.
Yeah.
But I have been, which is weird because I've always historically been really good with like weights more and kind of that workout, and not as good with cardio and not as good really with running and that. But I have been great with the running side of it. I have a, and they're wonderful for that. He gets depressed if he doesn't get to go out for his walk or his run. He like mopes around the house all day. It's really funny. He's like throws himself on the floor. It's like, oh, my life is so hard. You're like, your life is pretty good. But I've been at my house in Colorado, and I don't have one here in Montana. And so I had been using that as an excuse somewhat. And I just decided really about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago now, that's a stupid excuse. And so I've been using, it's not as good, but I've been using like exercise bands and all of that.
Oh yeah.
And just doing a lot more with that stuff rather than with actual free weights and things.
There's a great app, Six Pack in 30 days.
Okay.
It has like different levels: beginner, advanced, ripped.
Yeah.
This app is a game changer because literally one workout is 15-20 minutes, but you'll be floor begging for mercy. It's exercises with body. You don't need weights, nothing.
Yeah.
So
I've been using those exercise bands, and there's certainly part of you that feels like a little old lady doing it, but it's a good workout, and I feel like I'm getting stronger and I'm doing the thing I need to do. So, and now that one downside of Montana is that it's so far, where we are is so far north, like we're almost to the Canadian border, and the sunrise is later and later and later. So I used to go to the bus stop with my kids in Colorado, and then I'd go on my run after that. But here we don't have a bus stop, and it's still dark. So I haven't been going in the dark on my run, in part because my dog has better sense of smell than I do, and there's been a black bear near us.
wow.
And so he smells the bear and he wants to turn around. So it's my run is more like the middle of the day. So I have been still able to, or been more recently able to get my 2 workouts in.
But you're currently doing it?
Yeah. So
what day are you on?
Well, I'm not doing 75 hard. I need to find that, but I just get back into it and stop. There's never the best time.
I know. I'm having this thoughts. Hey, wait until January 1st? Why don't you just start now?
Yeah, exactly. It's my birthday. My daughter's birthday is in 2 weeks. My other daughter's birthday is in a month.
Thinking the ice cream cake. Oh man.
I know. See, cake, ice cream, Christmas, Halloween, all of those good things.
I love
it. I'm a sweet guy. That's the problem. So I'm working on that aspect of it and just stopping that crap, or really more minimizing it. Ever since I did 75 hard, my biggest thing was I used to be like a nighttime snacker.
Yeah.
I put the kids to bed, and then I would go and consume 1,000 calories of shit.
Weed will do that to you.
What was that?
Weed will do that to you. The munchies.
Yeah, potentially, but but now I had the conscious thoughts repeatedly saying like, oh, I'm tired. But instead of being like, I'm tired, I should go to bed, because, I don't put my kids to bed super early anymore. It's not like they're 3, And so now instead of I would be like, oh, I'm tired. What's in the pantry? I should watch some crappy TV show, and let's go, see what's in the pantry. Now it's like, oh, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed.
This is the hardest thing for me, to go to bed when I'm supposed to.
So I still don't go to bed as early as I maybe want to. There's stuff I'm doing, but at least I'm not sitting in front of the TV consuming.
Yeah.
Consuming crap TV. There's very few shows that are any good.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of my favorite like car shows that I used to watch, I watch Motor Trend TV and stuff like that. They've started pushing electric vehicles and there's, I'm all for, if you want to do an electric vehicle, that's fine. Like there's a lot of really cool aspects of it.
You know, in the 20s, it only took 20 years to replace the horse. We were riding horses for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Imagine the richest king and the poorest peasant, they both have a horse. And then in the 20s, and Henry Ford had a lot to do with that too, the horses were replaced with cars. It only
Yeah.
took 20, 30 years. It didn't take long.
Yeah.
And now every single commercial is like, oh, I don't need to use my hands. Driverless cars.
Yeah.
And maybe what I see is like this is inevitable. We are going to have to rent tracks and drive cars. They're going to take us
Not
out of
if
the
I
road.
can fight it. I'm driving cars as long as I can. I will not give that up.
I think they're gonna. I think, and they're gonna use safety.
Do not comply. Do not comply.
I think they're gonna use the safety factor.
They can kiss my safety butt.
They're gonna say, "Look, we have these self-driven buses that bring your kids to school, and what if somebody who's not paying attention is texting?" They're gonna start emphasizing on accidents. You know, there's a ton of accidents happening, so they're gonna start emphasizing on accidents. Be like, "This is dangerous," and they're gonna say, "For the sake of safety, no one's driving on the public roads. You want to drive, pay $1,000." Kind of like right now, the exotic cars. If you want to race them, you got to go to a track. I think that's just the beginning of.
Not in Montana.
No.
Montana only got a
Oh, Wisconsin.
well, but Montana only got a speed limit, a few decades ago.
Oh, really? It was no speed limit
It
before?
used to be safe and prudent.
Yeah.
So when I was looking at up here, and I borrowed my sister's BMW to drive up from Colorado, and safe and prudent. So
yeah. I love speed.
Yes, so I do as well. So don't comply. Don't comply, man. It's all part of the crap.
Oh man, there's so many
The
things.
EV stuff is a push. They're saying it's green. It's not green. You go look at a coal mine or a lithium mine and tell me how green it is.
Yeah.
The drive from Montana I've done a number of times over the last few years. And you see all these giant wind turbines in Wyoming and that area. And A, they look like crap. B, most of the time they're not spinning because they only work in a certain window of wind. If it's too windy, they actually will use a diesel-powered generator to prevent them from spinning too fast. So, and it is, all sorts of stuff. So they're not green. And then the cars are not green. The batteries are not safe. You get into you talk about an accident, you get in an accident with a electric vehicle and then the battery goes out. Well, an accident that with a normal car would have cost $5,000 to fix, because this hit and damaged the battery. Now it's $20,000 to fix.
Yeah.
And, the grid is not made for it. Right. I mean, famously, Gavin Newsom in California said we're making the switch to 100% EV by, whatever it was, 2035 or 2030.
2030.
And then a week later, they made the announcement, please don't plug in your electric vehicles because the grid won't support it because it's too hot right now. And it's going to cause power. So it's a ploy. It's a ploy. They're pushing that crap to then get you onto public transportation, to then get you into those 15-minute cities and do all of that.
Yeah, it's about control. The other thing that when Russia-Ukraine war started, if you remember, they asked Elon Musk to shut down the Teslas of the Russian oligarchs.
Yeah.
That's when some people connected the dots and they're like, oh,
yeah.
Because if you're driving your old Ford Durango, nobody can shut that thing down.
Dodge Durango, yes. Yes.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's true. It's true. All this stuff these days, it's, they're pushing towards that, your social credit score and that kind of stuff. I mean, we can put on a tinfoil hat if you want, but at this point, I feel like it's pretty well proven. So
what happen though? Because like I've got some clients down, and I would be like, guys, when are you gonna stand up? We're waiting for you. Like, North people are not standing up, and like we're seeing things happening. You know, parents being arrested and people.
I don't know. I don't know what take, man. I say to people all the time, I'm like, there was a revolution over a 3% T tax. Like,
When
how?
is it going to start?
I
This
don't
is
know.
not this is not just America; it's the whole world, and the whole world is waiting on America. Like as an immigrant, I can tell you, this is the only free country in the world.
But we're not free.
And so that means there's no free country in the world anymore
Yeah,
because
we're not free, right? Like,
still we have a lot more freedom than other
we
countries.
certainly do, but a lot of it is all manufactured freedom. It makes you think you're free, but
Like illusion of freedom. But
Yeah.
there are some true freedoms, very few left,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to strip them away
Yeah.
every day.
Well, freedom of speech is not the case anymore.
Oh yeah, that's like the first thing I noticed when I moved to the States 20 years ago. I was like, oh, anybody can say anything as long as you don't touch anybody. You
Yeah,
can say whatever you want.
but now words are violence, so it's
That's communist thing.
it is.
That's how communists used to themselves with
Yep.
without freedom.
Well, disinformation and you have our current administration that are saying it is illegal for you to say bad things or things they don't agree with. That's pretty totalitarian, if you ask me. That's pretty communist, if you ask me.
I know, but I think they got us because we're not doing anything.
I know.
And
We're I am a fan of history. I'm not like, a guy who goes and does Civil War reenactments or anything like that. But I pay attention to history and some of that stuff. And I always wondered, with World War II and the Nazis and all of that, I always wondered how we got, how they got to that point. How you had it where people didn't stand up and say, no, wait, that's Bill Smith. That's my neighbor. Like, he's fine. Don't take him. Right? Like standing up for your neighbor and standing up for your friends. I always wondered what happened and how that worked until 2020. And I realized that's how it worked. It's for the greater good. You put this mask on, not for you, but for the other people. It's for the greater good.
yeah,
Don't worry. Just tell on your neighbor. It's for the greater good. Oh, your neighbor is out when they're not supposed to be out. You just tell on them. Because it's for the greater good of society that person gets punished. And I no longer wonder how the Nazis did it, because it just happened to the entire world the same exact way.
and the other dangerous belief system is, you remember how they were paying people off for snitching? Like if you
Yeah.
tell, so the other dangerous belief system is, if you can't beat them, join them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the communist slogan.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what's good. I was sure that when they were mandating masks for kids, that there would be more pushback and more standing up. And, now I was sure when they were doing all this indoctrination and all this, queer theory stuff and all this stuff happening with kids, that was going to be a push, right? Like it's a weird world where somebody's trying to read about a book in a adult school board meeting, and they tell them to not read it because it's profane, but it's in your kid's library and it's being taught to your little kids in school. So I figured there would be a lot more parent pushback and a lot more of that.
but there was, and
Not enough.
we watched it. Like California stood up. There was so many parents that stood up and they do stuff, and we were watching them, kind of like you're
But
watching,
we all needed to be doing it.
right? And we were watching your neighbor getting his ass kicked, and he don't deserve it, and we didn't do nothing.
Yep.
And when singular person tries to do something or to organize something, they get canceled or shut down, and they put some dirt on them. And
I mean, I think what needs to really happen, I agree with Andy in it, is you have people in law enforcement, you have good teachers, you have, good FBI agents, and they need to stop enforcing it and stop pushing and say, you know what? No, it's not worth it. I make 50 grand a year. I'm putting my life on the line. I'm not arresting this guy for doing something that I agree with that he should be doing. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is that. And, I actually wrote an email to Andy, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago at this point, a year ago at this point. I never got a response on it, but I wrote an email about, what I see as the best peaceful way to, stop this and stop these elite people, air quotes, elite, right? People look at somebody like Bill Gates, and if you cut his face, from the neck down, you wouldn't look at him and his body and be like, yeah, that guy's elite, right? You'd say that guy's got a dad bod. But that what I wrote in the email, to me, that the best way is kind of along the lines of what the Canadian truckers did. But instead of going to a place and doing something, just stop delivering food to those cities. Instead of going and putting your truck out there, just park your truck in your driveway and just get all of your friends to park their trucks in their driveway. Get all the plumbers, all the mechanics, all the electricians to stop working on those people's houses. All the pilots to stop flying those people's private jets, right? Like, just stop.
The problem is they're ruining the economy on purpose, so you could be focused on daily needs.
Of course.
And like, if you're a father of 5 kids,
but we have enough guys. There's enough people like Andy, right, that maybe could help bankroll some of that, right? Hey, if you're an electrician and you vow not to work on, Nancy Pelosi's house, right?
But his business also depends on the little guy that's going to buy.
I know
the stuff.
But there's a lot of those people that I think there's enough that they can help bankroll that side of it long enough to get to do that. Or hey, you electrician, don't work on Nancy Pelosi's house, come work on mine, right? All the people that are on board with this, all the people that are on board with fixing, or give that plumber a different, find work for him. Say, hey, I'm going to do that. Don't build Bill Gates' new house. And I think there's enough people with means to push that and to be able to compensate those people, right? Instead of flying the private jet for Zuckerberg, fly the private jet for, Joe Schmo business owner instead.
Yeah, I think it's coming soon. Things are gonna.
There's got to be a workers of the world unite in a way to eliminate the elite people.
Eventually, people will be fed up. I think somebody that the people love has to get hurt, so people stand up.
I don't know. Tell me, if you were LeBron James, would you still be pushing their propaganda after your 18-year-old son had a heart attack?
Yeah, but they created LeBron James, so they got him for.
Sure, but he, would you be pushing that? I would stop, right? If you were Justin Bieber and then you all of a sudden started having what was that? He had Bell's palsy or something he developed, post-vaccine.
There's a lot of celebrities that are developing problems.
Yeah, so they're useful idiots. And at some point they realize that and stop participating, So I think the mistake of COVID is that it didn't kill enough people that the people wanted it to. And I think it's coming. And I think there's more stuff happening and more side effects coming and things that we're going to see as years go on and on.
But I think it's a test run. And what they're going to do is they're probably going to come up with another virus that kills people more.
Yeah.
And some of the people that are like you and me are going to be like, okay, now I can't deny that this is killing people. And the people on the other end is going to be like, I told you so. Just like we're telling them, I told you so now. So it's going to be like, people are going to question the truth.
Well, I mean, I'm, I think I heard Andy the other day on the podcast, right? Like, I don't trust anybody anymore. I question everybody. I question everything. I question so many aspects of what is and isn't good for us, and what, is and isn't being, played on us. It's a tough place to be, but that's a lot of where I am with that, is like, hey, like, I mean, I spent a decade of my career in biotech and pharmaceuticals, and there's a lot of good that they do, but there's also a lot of bad that they do.
Oh yeah, half a
Right.
million people die from modern medicine.
Well,
From
more
side-
people die from Tylenol than have ever died from marijuana. More people die every year from Tylenol. Thousands of people die from Tylenol or acetaminophen.
Oh yeah,
I mean, so much of that stuff. But so you just I think wholeheartedly what Andy's personal excellence is the best rebellion. I think that is the best avenue, right? I've personally gotten off a number of pharmaceutical drugs, some of which I felt like had minimal effect on me and minimal impact, and some of them I didn't feel like did much of anything.
right.
And it's like, you know what? No, I don't need to take it. I don't
take any of those.
I don't do really any prescriptions, or I don't, to be honest, I don't notice much difference. I think there's more upside from a cold plunge than there is from an antidepressant. I think there's more upside from exercise than there is from a number of other drugs and stuff out there. I think there's more upside from eating healthy than there is, it's like we've switched, there was some stat, and, don't quote me on it, but there was some stat I remember reading a number of years ago that we used to spend a larger percentage of our budget on food and a much smaller percentage of our budget on healthcare. And that flip-flopped.
Well, people think that medication and health insurance means health, but that doesn't mean health.
No, it does the opposite of it. I mean, it's I've had numerous in my life where I've had that question with somebody. I'm like, wait a minute, so you'll cover me getting surgery on something that's like tens of thousands of dollars, but you won't cover a preventative for it.
Exactly.
You'll cover the surgery, but not the prevention.
If you go to a surgeon, the only way a surgeon can make money is if he cuts.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you go build a muscle around.
But for the insurance company, it's expensive.
Yeah.
But they'll cover that, but they won't cover the, I had a like tennis elbow thing or something, and they would cover surgery on my elbow, but they wouldn't cover, like, it was like, $10,000 or $15,000 to do that. And I'm sure it's much more now. But it wouldn't cover like a $1,500, like ultrasonic, like red light therapy, because it wasn't 100%, fail safe. I'm like, neither is surgery, but it was like $1,500 versus $15,000. I'm like, give it a shot. Like, come on. Like, why are you willing to do the more? And so, I've been trying to push that and do that in my life, and getting away from, all of the crap. I've dropped, not internet, but cable and all of that stuff. I've dropped a number of streaming services. I won't let my kids watch Disney Plus.
Yeah, me too.
We don't watch Hulu or anything like that. We'll watch Netflix, but only certain shows. We'll watch Amazon Prime, but only certain shows.
Disney Plus is dangerous.
They all are. Hulu is dangerous.
You watch the teenagers there, just the behavior they have.
Yeah.
Adapting that behavior and the words they use, the way they talk about their parents. That's really a bad example.
Look at every sitcom in the last, 30 years. They demean the father. They disrespect him. They treat him like some bumbling idiot, imbecile. Look at like a Homer Simpson or those kinds of things, right? Just some bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we don't watch it. I don't watch a lot of TV anymore. We moved to Montana in large part to get. I lived in Colorado my whole life, essentially. I lived in Arizona for a few years when I worked at Amazon, and I, you know, did a technology transfer when I worked for Amgen in Puerto Rico. I lived there for a few months and lived in Seattle for a few months, but mostly I've lived in Colorado my whole life, and it's not the Colorado I grew up in. It's crime ridden. It's got homeless people all over the place. It's got like it's become a hellscape, and most big cities I think have. And so we moved to Montana to get away from that. We moved to Montana because it's more my people. It's a better life for my kids. It's a better life for my wife and myself. We're out in nature more. We are doing more, outdoors things. Not that we didn't do outdoors things in Colorado, but they're more attainable here. You're not stuck in traffic for hours skiing or camping or hiking or whatever. It's right out the front door.
I remember that was the first state that legalized pot. And do you think that had something to do with it, or?
Because it was the first, it did. In my opinion, you had a lot of people that just wanted to be in the pot industry.
Right.
And you kind of developed, there was a whole big transient move that came during that time frame. And I think now as more states have legalized that's not a thing, but because that was the first, it was all of those people that their lifelong dream was to be in the pot industry. It's I don't know, I don't have any measurable skills. I just want to be in the pot industry. I mean, that was one of the biggest challenges I had when I worked at Open Vape, was the people that just wanted to be in the pot industry. And I was like, no, and it was talking to getting the owners and stuff to understand it as well. I was like, we make widgets. This is production. We are producing. But it's production, right? If you're on the grow side, if you're on the infused product side, it's production. It's not I'm in the weed industry. It's I'm in production. I just happen to get a discount on weed, right? You get an employee discount at places, right? If I was working at an auto parts store, you get an employee discount on the auto parts, right? It's the same thing. We make widgets. Those widgets just happen to be getting people high, but they're medicine for people. They do a lot of really good stuff for people. But, I started when I was there. One of the ways I made some of those improvements was putting processes in place and doing lean manufacturing and all of that stuff. But a lot of it was also we started hiring people on job boards as opposed to Craigslist. I said, I want somebody with manufacturing skills, not somebody who has a MED badge, which is the Marijuana Enforcement Division badge that you had to get. I don't care if you have one, because all you got to do is be able to pass a background check to get one of those. So I would rather you be good with a skill set and be okay working in the pot industry than your lifelong goal to be in the pot industry, but have no skills to back it up, So that was, I think that a push. And, I think any industry, you have those aspects. I mean, my dad used to work in breweries growing up because he grew up, part of his childhood he spent in Milwaukee, and he used to work in breweries. And he remembers when the rule was you can't have more than, he remembers when there was no rule and you could just drink on the job. And he remembers when they instituted a rule that it was no more than a 6-pack, which is crazy for us to think about right now, but that's kind of the thing. And so, stuff evolves and industries evolve. Part of the reason I got in the industry was because my skill set has been, making things run more efficiently, which this industry needs it, making things run with better quality, which this industry needs it, and having better safety profiles, and kind of help building the trust of an industry that, people think about potheads and flakiness and blah, blah, blah. And so for us, it was, hey, let's do business like business people. Hey, let's bring in good quality products that work and are functional. Let's make this a reputable industry so that it'll be around for a long time. The fastest way for it to not be around is for people to sell crap that's illegal, to sell crap that's, got pesticides in it or things like that, to sell crap that doesn't work so people don't feel like they're getting their money's worth.
Yeah.
And so for us, we wanted to be able to bring in that quality and kind of help create a culture of, getting rid of that stigma or those stigmas that existed in the cannabis industry.
Well, it became taxed and all that.
Well, yeah. I mean, they are taxing the hell out of it. Obviously drives people back into the illegal market. I mean, it's silly, but that's what government does. Government does silly things to, either things that they think they know better than you how to run your life for you, or they're doing things that are, have nefarious, other motives, I guess.
I just think people from any industry or any business have different intention, and there's 80% of the people that have bad intention, and whether that's openly bad intention or just transactional mindset or
Yeah.
just like indifference, but I combine that in bad intention, like if the doctors are clinically depressed, they have to be on some type of drugs and alcohol just to survive.
How many doctors have you been to that are overweight,
Right.
that are, out of shape, that are, it's like, holy crap, like, wait a minute, why am I getting health advice from you? Why am I going to a personal trainer that's fat? Like, if you can't do it, then you're not going to motivate me to do it.
Yeah, and it's just so many people in different fields and industries that don't belong there.
Yeah. And don't believe in it and all of that. And so, like I said, that's for us, that's where we want to differentiate is we bring quality. Our delivery system is, as far as I know, the best out there. It is patented and it works. So I have a product or an ingredient that we stand behind that I can believe in. I'm not some snake oil salesman out there, something just to make a dollar. I want to have those relationships with people long term. I would like to be able to, if they do well, we do well. So the business plan and the business model we have is like, let's give them the best technology and the best opportunity to be successful, so that then we have the best opportunity to be successful.
That's really good.
Right? If I can help you, I use the term or the phrase, if somebody wanted to make a CBD ketchup, who am I to say it's not going to be the next big thing? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But if I can best technology that gives you the best opportunity for that CBD ketchup to be successful, then I'm doing my part to help you. And, in turn, that will then help us. I say that as like a joke, but I have been talking to a guy about CBD and THC ketchup, mustard, and barbecue sauce. And so I'm like, well, I don't know. What other crazy product idea can I put out as an example?
Hey, you never know.
Yeah.
What do you have your focus and attention on right now? What are some challenges in your business and things that you're looking forward to? Some walls you're trying to make a bridge?
The biggest challenge has just been rebuilding, after the turmoil that's happened in the business. Unfortunately, there's a lot of competition out there now where there wasn't before. We had that first mover access, and now you're in the midst of stuff. Biggest challenge is just gaining clients and gaining their trust and building that business. So anybody who wants to start an infused beverage brand, give me a call. Beverages, foods, cosmetics, and or really the manufacturing side of it is
CBD infused.
Be infused, but we have solutions for all sorts. We call it active ingredients now. So we have solutions for mushrooms, hemp, cannabis, vitamins, supplements. I mean, Andy, if you're listening, would make your supplements absorb better in the body, so you can do more with less. You can have them be more effective. So it takes things that are difficult for the body to absorb and helps them absorb easier.
Well, that's definitely interesting. We'll stay in touch on that,
Yeah.
and it's good that you picked a business that it's actually beneficial to many, and you're solving a problem. So I believe that your success is inevitable. Stay on course, never give up. Is there anything you want to share with the audience in closing? Something
Uh,
positive, encouraging, or
just go get it done, man. Go out there and start. Just start. The hardest thing is starting. Once you start, then the next step gets easier. So that's my level of encouragement there. Just go do it. Start your day with something hard, something that sucks. Start with a cold plunge or an early morning workout. Those kinds of things, and then your day gets better along the way.
Are you a big fan of routines, or you like your days to be different?
I'm a big fan of routines. So at least a chunk of the day is a routine for me. Being an entrepreneur, the rest of it is all over the place. But I try to have the chunk of my morning routine, especially, is pretty set. And
You feel
I moved about 2 months ago, so I've had to kind of reorient that. But I'm finding my groove and finding that what works for my new normal.
that's awesome. Well, that's a great pleasure to
Yeah, you as well.
learn more about your life. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing some of the challenges you're going through. And like I said, I see a very bright future for you. So
You as well. Good luck with finding your new business partner.
I'm not actively looking, but I think that, just like you said, we can't do anything on our own.
Yeah,
It's hard to build a team. It's hard to find people who care as much as you do. And sometimes with a business partner, it's easier to attract people to the team. So
yeah. It'll happen.
that aspect, yeah, it's good for now. God is my business, but if God sends someone,
Yeah.
that would be amazing. I
There
had
you go.
a tremendous pleasure talking to you and getting to know you. Let's be lifetime friends. Let's help
There
each
you
other
go.
whatever we can.
Better every day.
Thank you so much for sharing, brother.
All
Make it
right.
a
Thank you.